You should already be familiar with the default DCS multiplayer spawn points on an aircraft carrier. This is what it looks like. But if there's AI aircraft on the carrier, then the AI aircraft will occupy the spots that a client is supposed to spawn in. And if that happens, it's more likely that you will spawn on the catapult because all the other normal spots are occupied by either players or AI. So in order to avoid this, we need to let the AI taxi and take off completely from the carrier first before we start spawning in. This is what we want the carrier to look like once we spawn in and taxi to the rearm zones. Notice that pilots on Elevator 1 and 4 rearm in the spawn itself. When taxiing from Elevator 3 and the patio spawn area, you will need to pop out in F2 view and act as your own yellow shirt. Pull forward and make the tail of your jet flush with the outer white line of the landing zone. This is how close the clearance is when additional aircraft spawn in at the patio. Now let's look at the corral and Elevator 2 spawn situation. Pilots spawning in on the corral or Elevator 2 will need to taxi out on the landing zone and turn hard right to occupy the 6-pack rearm zone. You want the first airplane occupying the 6-pack to point his nose kitty corner to that rectangular box right in the middle there. Be sure that this guy doesn't trigger Catapult 2, but even if you do, don't panic. Just advise on deck that Cat 2 is currently reserved for your Modex. Be sure the outer left tail of your aircraft is flush with the inner white line of the landing zone. And even with an E2 launching from Cat 3, the clearance is safe. This is how close the clearance is, but we can still get additional aircraft through on the way to Catapults 1 and 2. So if you spawn in, and you did not spawn on Elevator 1 or 4, and you see an opening at your designated rearm zone, then you must occupy that opening. Here is how you taxi out from the aft rearm zone, and you can see the reason why we aligned the tail of these jets on the outer line of the landing zone. If the jets were any farther forward, you would not be able to taxi past them on your way towards Cat 3. So with this taxi plan, we are still in the business of keeping spawn points open for more players to use, but we are not taxiing down to the fantail and creating a bottleneck down there. If you didn't know already, DCS will only allow 14 aircraft to spawn in and remain on deck at any one time. So even if we aren't worried about clearing Elevator 1 and 4 right away, it doesn't matter. What you see right now is most likely what the deck will actually look like with the 14-player spawn limit. The goal is to get off deck as soon as possible so that other players can take your place. Just remember this mantra: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. This system was thought up as a way to work within the limitations of DCS, and until ED allows us to precisely customize where we spawn, this will have to do for the time being. So that's all. Use the taxi plan and have a great deployment.